Hey guys.
Hey Pete. Hey, you're all joining okay? We've got 43 so far, so no pressure, Pete. 47 now.
Great. Oh, are we doing the where's everybody from chat?
We are, yeah. In case you haven't noticed, guys, if you've been to some of our other webinars, we've got a brand new platform, Demio. So we've got loads of new features. We're trying them all out. We're exploring. So yeah, bear with us. We're going to be doing polls, handouts, everything. So definitely get chatting in the comments. And I think there's some really difficult questions with Pete. Like we don't feel like we've tested him enough recently. So get some of them awkward questions about AI that you've been wondering about and asking them. Oh, where have we got people from? Whitley Bear, lovely Scott. Oh, Lincolnshire. Very nice. Derbyshire. Hey, Joe. Hope you enjoyed the event on Tuesday. Oh, we've got Chris from Guinness. Wow, we really have got people from every part of the country. Devon, jealous of you, Tim. Lisbon. You're from there, right, Philip? You're not just on a holiday. Wow, we really have got a good representation there. Up to 57. That's brilliant. We're always amazed that people turn up for these things. So also very grateful.
This is much more exciting than Sunderland, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
Gateshead
doesn't have the same appeal, does it? Although it's very sunny here. Can't believe it's March. Oh, awesome. Another Manchester person. Perfect. Well, 11:03. I think we've pretty much got everybody in now. So we'll kick off. Oh, Newcastle. Someone local to us. Hey, Lou. Right. Well, I'm going to kick things off. If that's all right with everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen or this all goes wrong. Tell me, Pete, you can see it, can't you?
Not yet, but it's nice to take a second. There it is. It's there for me now.
Brilliant. Gone for a nice orange background there. So thank you so much for joining us, everybody. This is the Gen I for Voice of Customer webinar. You've got 3 varieties of nerds today. So that's me. I'm Sarah Wilson. I'm an account manager at Wordnerds. I don't always just hang around holding on to chairs, in case you're wondering. That was a professional photo shoot. The other guys did me dirty and did a more casual one. But yeah, that's me. We've also got Pete. So most of you have probably seen Pete before. He gets around. He's our CEO. And as we put here, he's definitely not Helen. She's our head of account management on maternity leave and coming back in May. I'm definitely counting down the days. I'm not going to lie. I'm very excited to have her back. And then we've also got Stella. So Stella's new to the Wordnerds team. She's been with us for a couple of months now. We're all absolutely amazed about how quick she is and how she's just picked it all up so quickly. So she works in the analyst team now. We thought to welcome her to her first webinar, we'd give her a live demonstration, which would make anybody nervous. So yeah, you're welcome, Stella. Now, what do we do? We've got lots of familiar faces on the call and familiar names at least. But for people who are joining us that perhaps haven't heard of Wordnerds before, we are a customer feedback analytics platform. We work across these 4 main spaces. So really big in the social housing space, also financial services. One of our original use cases was retail. And then we've recently made forays into travel and hospitality. So Hotel Planner, one of our newest clients, I think they're on the call as well. So, hey. So you can see the kind of breadth of clients we've got, some really cool clients and some amazing use cases from very data obsessed people. And that leads me on nicely to the question of today's webinar. So can I use Copilot or ChatGPT to analyse my customer feedback? As you can probably imagine, now that I've just said that we're a customer feedback analytics platform, it's a slightly leading question here. I'm never in a million years going to come out and say, yes, you can use ChatGPT for your customer feedback, not least because Pete's threatened that he'll sack me if I say things like that in public. Now, all jokes aside, we are really hoping that you can leave today's webinar a little less ignorant than you came. I don't know about you, but I'm going to be honest. Gen AI has definitely intimidated me, working out what it can do, what it can't do, what I should be using it for, what I shouldn't be using it for. Like it's a bit of a minefield. And I think I really struggled to kind of understand its capabilities. Now, I definitely don't want to boost Pete's ego any more than it already is boosted. But I'm really hoping that you leave today's session feeling a lot more confident about the solution, what it's good for, what it's not good for, and whether or not you see the kind of the value in the Wordnerds platform. We just want to make sure that you understand the different choices out there, what they're good for, and really what's best for your business. Now, the question is, are we faithful? Are we traitor? We absolutely love this show at Wordnerds. I'm sure that we've got some fans out there too. So we really want to, find out, do you agree? Do you see the value in it? Do you see some of the problems that we're going to pose? And then, you can let us know at the end if you think that we're faithful or traitor. So for an agenda, we've got about kind of 40 minutes planned and then plenty of time for questions at the end. We always say this works so much better as a dialogue and not a monologue, especially with Pete's voice. It can get a little bit repetitive. So definitely jump in there, guys. Ask questions in the chat, make it interactive, engage with our polls, and just, definitely, let us know questions. We're very open for conversations. We're going to start with a challenge. So Pete's going to outline why this is so difficult, which platform you should use, how you set about doing this in the first place, and the data set that we're going to be using. We are using synthesized housing data for this webinar today. Ironically, it's been made by Claude. So we gave Claude some prompts and it's pulled back some synthesized data. And Pete's going to walk you through that data set using the Gen AI approach and help you unpick a little bit more how it works. And like I said, what it's good for and what it's not so good for. And then we're going to bring in the Wordnerds approach. So what we do, how we take the best bits of AI ultimately and layer them into kind of analysis. And then we're going to have a live head-to-head. So we're going to bring Stella back, find out, what did Wordnerds find? How does that compare to the Gen AI findings? And for that, we ask that you have a think about potential topics that you might talk about in a housing data set. So have a think. We'll come to a point and ask you to pop some ideas in the chat and we'll pick one live. And then from there, we'll go into a Q&A. Like I say, start thinking about your questions, put some in the chat. We'll be giving out a care package as well. And if you get to the end of this and think, I want to find out more, this sounds great, you can have a chat with us directly. We'll run through some of the options that you've got there. So we've got a poll popping up now, hopefully, so you should be able to see that. We'd love to start with a baseline of how you're feeling about Gen AI. Have you used it before? How do you think that this will work out? So give your answer there, and then we'll take another poll at the end and see if your kind of perceptions and expectations have changed. And guys, be honest, there's no wrong answers here. I think we're all very new to this approach, so absolutely just be honest as you'd like. But yes, I'm going to hand over to Pete.
Thank you, Sars, for that only mildly abusive introduction. I would never give you a P45. Who would I get to do all of my work? But I'm very much looking forward to our one-to-one this afternoon after that. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for turning up. There's loads of you here today. We are always staggered at how and why so many of you choose to hang out with us on a Thursday morning at these things. But we know there's lots of different calls on your time and we don't take it lightly. So thank you so much for turning up. As Saz says, we thought we would make this fun by turning it into a live challenge. And obviously, as she said, the challenge is, can I use Copilot or ChatGPT to analyze my customer feedback? We could easily have said Gemini or Claude or any of the other Gen AI platforms as well. So in terms of unpacking the challenge, I think the first thing that we need to do is look at, well, which one of these? And we've selected Copilot as the one that we're going to use today. We've done this for one simple reason. This whole webinar came from an actual question that a potential customer asked us. So we had a client who was signing up for proof of concept. They went to their senior leadership team to ask for some budget, and the SLT not unreasonably said, well, we've already got Copilot. Why don't we just get Copilot to do it? And they came back and said, why don't we just get Copilot to do it? So we said, that's a great question. So we thought we would kind of do something like this as a means to explore that question. And most people we deal with are on the Microsoft stack. Most of them have the easiest access to Copilot, and it tends to be where most people start with this. So right or wrong, that's what we've chosen. If you feel indignant with rage that we've picked the wrong one, feel free to let us know, and we can rerun this session using some kind of weird Chinese derivative or another Gen AI platform of choice. About the data set, SARS mentions that it's a synthetic data set. Clearly, GDPR, we can't be showing people's real data on a webinar, so we've made some up. What we've done is we've created a fictitious housing association that we've called Acme Housing. I know we're not imagination nerds, we are word nerds. It's not the most imaginative name in the world, but it'll do. And Acme Housing has 12,289 rows of TSM survey data. If you're not in the housing industry, and there are some people here that aren't, TSM stands for Tenant Satisfaction Measures. There is a whole regulatory push about making people really understand the feedback of their residents, and it's basically a survey asking what people think of them. And although it is synthetic, it's been generated, it's based on real data sets. So we take issues that are in real data sets that we see, and we've got Gen AI to basically create a certain number of bits of feedback on each of the kind of key issues. It's not perfect. It has all of the problems associated with Gen AI. When we first did it, the stuff that came out was very formal. It was all very, dear Housing Association, I wish to protest about the way I've been treated. So we said, can you be a bit more relaxed and kind of laid back, please? And they went, yo, man, my boiler repair was whack. So there's kind of all kinds of weird things in between formal and too informal. But if you see any weird verbatim, that's all that is. But for the purposes of today, it gives us something that we can play with and show you, because it's always easier to see real data than hear idiots like us talk about it. Next, what do we mean by analyze customer feedback? Generally, that means two things to us. The two questions insights analysts in most large organizations get are, what are our customers telling us generally? So can we put numbers on things? Can we see what our big issues are? Most people know broadly their big issues, but can they quantify it? What's the sentiment in that? What are the small issues that a very small number of people feel deeply? What are the massive issues that everybody feels a little bit? And how do you start prioritizing these different issues? And then secondly, the wonderful question that people usually ask at 4:35 on a Friday afternoon, what does our data tell us about X? Where you then have to go through all of your data and come up with a useful answer. And this being a Wordnerds webinar, we thought we would make it a bit fun, and we thought we would get you guys to decide what topic you'd like us to look into for this live head-to-head challenge. So jump on the chat, put in, ideally if you're from a housing association, but you don't have to be, put in the kind of question that somebody might ask you about, what does our data tell us about, pick any subject you want, pop the stuff in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to let Stella pick one and then go away and research. She's going to put it through Copilot and get Copilot to do some analysis on it. She's going to play that back at the end. She's also going to look at the Wordnerds data set and see what we can find in there, and she'll compare and contrast what you can do in both. So looking, oh, thanks. There's loads of stuff coming through here. We've got repairs, tenant engagement, ASB, damp and moles. Nice, yeah. Skin complaints and damp are a very big part of TSM. Stella, go on. I'm going to be generous. There's lots of stuff in there. What would you like?
I'm not known for my decision making. I will do repair. Seems to be the most talked about. Is it a bit broad? We'll do repairs.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody happy with that? If anybody's really unhappy with that, then please put it in the chat, and we will probably ignore you. But right, Stella, go. You go and have a look at this stuff. She'll be tapping away in the background, and we'll bring Stella back in about 10 or 15 minutes. Thank you for that. Appreciate the participation. So when we initially conceived this webinar, what we thought we would do is do this completely live and put some stuff in Copilot and play it back to you as we're sort of doing it. We found very quickly, though, it does have a little bit of a lag. It can take 30 seconds or so to come back with some stuff. And on a webinar, that's going to be really boring. So what we thought we would do instead is we'll take you through. We picked an issue and we kind of went in and did some bits and pieces. And we're going to take you through what we did. And then we're going to explain why that happens. And then we're going to show you the alternative to that, which is a specialist tool like Wordnerds. So our opening gambit, we've got these 12,000 lines of data. And we put in a prompt, and you can read it here. Hopefully my screen's big enough. So we said, hello, Copilot. I hope you're having a good day. We are always very nice to Gen AI. When the robots take over the world, we do not want to be first against the wall come the revolution. So we're extremely polite. It's common courtesy as well. So, hi, hope you're having a good day. I've got a data set. It's for a UK social housing landlord, Acme Housing. Please, can you analyze it for me? We'll upload the spreadsheet, blah, blah, blah. There's 3 columns. There's the published at, which is the date. There's the content, which is the verbatim, and then where it's come from. And the key things we asked it to pull out are size of each issue, sentiment of the key themes, and crucially, how we can improve, what we actually do with this data. And this is what came back. So the first thing that came back were key themes in the data, and it picked out maintenance and repairs, communication, customer service, security and safety, community environment, and there was, a couple of other ones as well. And for each different thing, it went into some of the sub issues. So maintenance and repairs, it picked up sort of damp and mold and problems with doors, windows, all that kind of stuff. And you can read the rest. You can see the kind of thing that it did. And we thought, well, that's a pretty good summary of key themes. We were pretty pleased with that. We thought that's useful. It's useful to know at a kind of top level what's on. That felt like a good start. Obviously, we also asked for size and sentiment, and it returned back with sizing. It said maintenance repairs was the most frequently mentioned issue. Communication, customer service, a lot of that was sort of poor communication and poor customer service. So it kind of went through some of these things. With the sentiment, it looked at predominantly negative sentiment or overwhelmingly negative or mixed sentiment. And actually, we thought with this stuff, the size there, that's too general, the sentiment's too vague, and there's kind of no numbers on this. And that's fine. That's our fault at this stage because we haven't asked it, and we can go in and ask it more questions. But at that level, that's probably not useful. It's probably too top level. We also asked for recommendations at that top level, and it said, improve maintenance response. So timely repairs ensure that repair requests are addressed promptly and that appointments are kept. Now, I'm sure no housing association has thought about ensuring that repair requests are addressed promptly, and nobody has tried to make sure that appointments are kept. So clearly, this is extremely general advice. It's so so self-evidently ridiculous. It's not going to really help. Again, there's things that we can do to get deeper into that data, but at the kind of top level, the actions are definitely too generic, and we need to sort of ask for more specific stuff, which is fine. We'll get back to that. So that was the kind of top level stuff. We also didn't like this thing at the bottom that said AI generated content may be incorrect. We would love to have a little thing at the bottom of Wordnerds report saying Wordnerds reports may be incorrect. And we'll see just how happy our customers are at that little disclaimer. We're not going to get away with it. So we went back and said, this is awesome. You are a legend. Again, we like to kind of make Gen AI feel good about itself. However, please can you provide me with some figures to back it up? For the issue of security that you highlighted, can you tell us what percentage of respondents mentioned each of the common issues? You said faulty locks, broken security doors, concerns about safety, blah, blah, blah. Also, are they increasing or decreasing over time? And what came back was really, really good. Faulty locks, 15.3%, broken security doors, 18.7%, concerns about safety, 22.1%. This is really useful. This is exactly the kind of stuff that we need. Somebody asks us about a particular issue or whatever, we can go in and ask it. It will tell us how many people are, or what percentage of the data set's having this issue. And then looking at it over time, it says the number of mentions has been relatively stable, slight increase in the last few months. That's pretty basic. Again, we'd rather have a little graph and stuff like that. But it was able to do the sizing, and now we're starting to get to a level that this stuff becomes kind of quite useful. At this point, we're like, oh God, should we just pack up? Shall we just, nice guess, Aldwin, no spoilers, please. At this point, should we pack up? Shall we all go home and, get a different job? See what we can do differently. But we kind of said, like, that's great. Can you give us a visual representation? And I said, here's a visual representation of trends over time. It tried to load a graph and it couldn't. And that's obviously an issue. And that we found hit and miss. We tried it a few different times. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but it can't consistently do it. And and potentially doesn't like actually doing the hard work. It just likes talking about things at a kind of top level. So that was that. We said, I'm afraid can't see your visualization. Please can you try that again? And it said, something went wrong. Please try again later, which I'm now adopting as a mantra in the Wordnerds office. So we did. We went away. We had a nice night. We came back the next day and we tried it all again. We put in exactly the same prompt and we went through all the same processes, except this time when it did the summary, this is what we got back. Faulty locks 8.5%, broken security doors 6.2%, concerns about safety 10.3%. And we were like, hang on a minute, yesterday it said 15, 18 and 22. There's a disparity in what it's telling us. Spotter's badge for Aldwin in the comments, you called it bang on. It basically appears to have made these numbers up. So in terms of our ask, it might be bollocks. So we thought, right, you've given us a very confident answer. You mentioned the 15.3% of residents mentioned faulty locks. That seems really high. Please, can you list the rows in the spreadsheet where residents mention issues with faulty locks? And it said, oh, sorry, looks like there's an error in my analysis. I'll reevaluate. I'll go back through. Let's try it again. Identify the rows in the spreadsheet where residents mention issues with faulty locks. So we waited and we waited some more. We waited some more and nothing happened. So we said, hi, you've gone really quiet. You're still working on identifying the rows in the spreadsheet where the residents mention issues with faulty locks. If you're busy, we can pop back later. Hate to interrupt you if you're on a break or hanging out with the other Gen AIs at the pub. You know, just try and engage it, get it on side, all that kind of thing. And it came back apologizing again, saying it'll reevaluate again. Then it went quiet again. And we ended up in this death spiral of it apologizing and saying that it's going to do stuff and us kind of waiting and asking it to do it. And that just didn't seem to end. Which was weird because when we tried it the next day, it was with a different topic, it was able to give us the rows where it thought we were talking about something. In this case, it happened to be accessibility. And it came back and it said, yeah, here are all of the row numbers where accessibility is mentioned. And obviously, being the kind of tedious data nerds that we are, we checked and we found row 9. Yep, that was definitely an accessibility issue. Row 33 was not. It was something about energy efficiency in the flat with new windows and insulation, all that kind of thing. It didn't in any way resemble anything that we could find about accessibility. So we basically asked it to check and it agreed that it did not mention accessibility. So it said, let me go and recheck the data set and provide the correct row numbers. And it did. And it came back with something completely different. And we also went back and sort of said, you said 20% mention accessibility. There's 12,288 lines on the data. So 20% would be 2,547. Is that correct? And it said yes. And then so then it basically it reevaluated its initial thing of 20% down to 2.6%, which clearly that's a massive delta, right? This is not just slightly wrong. This is completely wrong. So what do we surmise from Copilot and how well it has answered our question? Firstly, it's really quick. Secondly, it's really confident. It gives you plausible summaries of things, but it doesn't like doing the hard analysis or the hard work, and it's prone to talking total bollocks. So our conclusion then is basically Copilot probably went to private school. But why does it do that? And there is a reason for it, and we're about to kind of show you it. Actually, hilariously, you can ask it yourself why it isn't good at this kind of thing, and it will tell you. And we did. We put a little prompt in saying, you know, why is it good at some things but not others? And what came back is a really good summary of all of the reasons why Copilot isn't good at this stuff. But to save you the bother, and because we want to teach you some sciencey stuff, light sciencey stuff, we're gonna run through it very quickly for you now. It does get a little bit technical, but not too technical. All of this stuff, by the way, like all writing on AI or hard data science stuff, we steal off other more intelligent people than ourselves. There's a guy online called Ben Evans. I recommend you read some of his blogs about this stuff. He's really, really good. And he has a contention where basically Gen AI is really, really good at tasks where there's no wrong answer, but really, really bad at deterministic tasks where there is either a right answer or a wrong answer. So he kind of says, look, there's a Midjourney. These are all the Midjourney models. Midjourney is an image generation AI. And you can see early ones at the top, latest ones at the bottom. The prompt is 2 cute kittens standing on a laptop close up. You can see the top level, they're pretty scary kittens. They kind of verge into gremlin territory in different stages, but they are objectively kittens, and they are on a keyboard. The ones at the bottom in the latest models are much cuter, much more like kittens. You can see it's improving. And as better models get better, it will continue to improve, but it can't be wrong, right? It gets that there's kitten on the keyboard, and it's great for that, just like it's great for writing a job description, or just like it's great for writing your marketing copy, because you can have a look at that and go, I like that or I don't, but it's still marketing copy. It's still a job description. It's still 2 kittens on a keyboard. The reason it doesn't work for analyzing data in customer feedback is because of the way that Gen AI is based on something called sentence embedding in large language models. So back to Ben Evans. Ben Evans sort of says that Gen AI doesn't actually think. It can't actually do reasoning. It can't actually work out whether something is right or wrong. And it won't tell you how many people think a particular thing, because it doesn't know. It's not built for that. What it is built for is spotting the patterns in language, and when it sees a selection of words, putting forward some other words that are plausible things that you would read next in that sentence. Hence the fact that it's great at writing marketing copy. If you say, write me some marketing copy for a product that does X, Y, and Z, it will give you the kind of things that you would say in that scenario. And the way that it works is, you can see down the left-hand side here, we've got words in common parlance. So cat, kitten, dog, houses, man, woman, king, queen. And imagine there's a large language model whose job it is to try and map all of the different connections between all of the different words in the English language. So it'll take a bunch of other words, living being, feline, human, gender, royalty, all the ones you can see across the top. And for each thing, it analyzes loads of language, and it looks for how often they're associated with each other. And it gives it a score about how closely associated different words are on against like loads of different criteria. So how close is cat and kitten in regard to gender? How close is cat and kitten in regard to feline? Much closer in regard to feline than gender, but still close-ish, because at least they have a gender, unlike, for example, in the English language, a pencil. And then what it does is it condenses all of that stuff down into a map. In this case, it's a 2D map, but actually the way that this really works is on thousands and thousands of vertices in this kind of weird virtual space. And you can see in this 2D map, cat and kitten have been put pretty close together. Dog is pretty close to both of those, clearly not as close as each other. A cat is closer to kitten than either are to dog, but they're all closer together than, say, a house, which is at least still a noun, but it's not a living being. So you can see how this works. And it does this for every word of the English language, and for patterns of words, and for patterns of words, so that when you start putting stuff into it, what comes back is an approximation of what it thinks might come next. I hope that made sense. That is as sciencey as it gets. We can talk more about it after if you've got specific questions. So clearly the problem with that is it's not thinking, it's not doing anything. And what can we do to make it better? Because actually a lot of that stuff is really, really useful. How do we actually turn that into something that can do that Stella can find something useful in the data with? Well, firstly, Copilot, it's starting with this map of the language, these sentence embeddings from Gen AI. It's then taking your customer feedback, it's referencing one against the other, and it's presenting directly from those sentence embeddings things that you might find interesting. And there's 2 things missing from that. One is a human. So your idea of what constitutes a damp and mold issue might be different to somebody else's idea. You might have a different threshold for things. We all have our unique geographies, our unique dialects. People in the north of England here talk very differently about the way that they do in Devon and Cornwall. And somewhere in this process, you always need a human to say, this is interesting, this isn't interesting. You can't fully automate this stuff. So much of this stuff is contextual. We might have tried to solve an issue 1,000 times before, so we're not interested in people talking about that specific issue, but there's a part of it that we can fix, so we are interested in that thing. So you need a human somewhere in the loop to decide this stuff, and that human needs to be able to really quickly take all of that understanding from sentence embeddings and turn it into a structured layer. What do we mean by that? We mean putting numbers on things, putting things in pots. This is a damp and mold issue. This is not. The sentiment of this is 25. The sentiment of this is 70 out of 100. And once you've got that, actually Gen AI is then really good at taking that data and writing a report from it, or telling us interesting things in that data, but it can't do it directly from the source data. So that's what you need. And very quickly, I'm going to explain how Wordnerds goes about that process, and then I'm going to bring Stella back in and let her show you that in real time. How's stress level, Stella? Are you getting there with it? Yeah, good. So how do we do that? Well, we start with the same stuff. All of those sentence embeddings that large language models have, we use. They're really, really useful things to start the data. And so we get people's data in, we map it against all of those sentence embeddings, and then we get a human to basically give us an example of something they want to look for, in this case, repairs. And they put in an example, and based on these relationships between the words that said that large language models understand, they pull stuff back that goes, we think this is similar, we think this is similar. You've said people didn't turn up to do our repair. Somebody else has said, I've waited in all morning and it was a no-show. In those situations, they haven't used any of the same words, but clearly, contextually, those two things are the same. And Gen AI is great for spotting those things. And we put all of those things in front of a human, and we get the human to say, yep, that's in the data set. No, that isn't. Process takes about 10, 15 minutes. And within about 10, 15 minutes, you can train a classification model that will put all of these things in a pot to an accuracy of somewhere between 85 and 95%. It's really important that we're clear about that. It's never 100%. Words are pretty weird. Humans are even weirder. And one of the good things about this is it can tell you how accurate it is. We've got these automated tests that allow you to do that. So you can see what degree of tolerance you're dealing with, and you'll never get 100% accuracy. So that's the first thing that we do. We combine the sentence embedding with the human context to create those little buckets. When we get that then allows us to stick them in a dashboard that's hierarchical. So we can look at, for example, safety issues. Within safety, there's a bunch of themes that we've trained: damp and mold, security, building security, health and safety, all the things that you'll see in the kind of TSM framework. And looking at that, we can put an exact number on things. So we can say, 1,200 of those 12,000 people have basically spoken about this issue. We can see sentiment. We can see the breakdown of sentiment. We use a five jump scale from really unsatisfied to really satisfied, and everywhere in between. So you see there that like nearly 10% of that data set is talking about building security. But then within that, you can drill down even further. So you can look at the other themes that people have spoken about, doors. And you remember the Copilot picked this up. It said that some people had talked about doors, but we can see exactly how many people, 878, and exactly what their sentiment was. And if we clicked on doors, it would then go into what people are saying about the doors, and all the way down to the verbatim that's driving the thing that you've selected. So you can start with your big messy data set of everything that your residents are telling you. You can basically break it down into a bunch of stuff. We've got about 130 classifications for housing associations that are commonly used, that are available out of the box. You can train your own for anything else that you want. And you can basically get all the way down to specific issues, the things that are driving them, and the verbatim that are saying that. So you can drill down to the root cause of any issue that you find. So well, that then allows you to spit that stuff out into a reporting platform. We used to do this on the platform. We now exclusively use Power BI. It's just really good at it. And that allows us to do some really clever things. So volume and sentiment over time is a given. One of our asks was understanding what to do. And volume and sentiment will give you a big list of things that you need to do, but what it won't do is tell you where to start to solve specific problems. But what we can use in things like Power BI is things like correlation analysis. So if we, depending on what you want to solve for, if we want to get our TSM score up, if we want to improve customer satisfaction, if we've got an NPS score, we can look at what are the drivers of those things statistically, of all the things people are talking about, what are correlated statistically, so that when mentions of this issue goes up, the sentiment or the TSM score goes down. And that's really helpful, because what that will give you is a batting order. It'll give you a list of, if you want to get your score up, then the biggest issue you need to solve is this, the second biggest issue is that, and it can be really granular stuff, or it can be bigger stuff that you can then break down into a more granular thing. So it'll do prioritization for you. Bunch of things that some of our customers, I think Chris from Guinness is on, they're doing some amazing stuff looking at using this stuff predictively. So when a complaint comes in, can we see whether or not it's going to be escalated to the ombudsman? Spoiler alert, yes, within a couple of weeks they got about 86% accuracy on that. There's a bunch of other stuff that we're now starting to do on there as well, and it's all in real time and it's available to everyone. It's because it's in Power BI, everybody has access to it. You're not having to bother the insights team to ask them specific questions. You can drill through all of these dashboards yourself and you can find out anything you want to know. So that's why a specialist tool can do more than a Gen AI out of the box. So that's me done. I'm excited about this. I'm going to bring Stella back to the stage. And Stella, I'm going to ask you to maybe take us through first what you did with Copilot and what you found, and then maybe if you can look at the BI dashboard and maybe then go into the platform.
Yeah, I went off mute and then on mute and then off. Anyway, okay, yes, hello, I'm Stella. I've got some cool stuff to show. So I'll share my screen this time. Sorry, I'm like really close to the camera. So to start, I went onto Copilot and I asked, I put in the data and then I said, what can you tell me about the repairs? And it gave some key issues, which was pretty useful. Talk about the delays, quality of work. And I said, can you tell me how many comments? And they said 3,700, which is where I got a bit nervous because that's actually quite close to what we found on the platform. So I thought, and then I said, can you give me the row numbers? And it's done my favorite thing I've seen Copilot do. It gave me row number 0, which I don't think is a thing. I mean, I'm not great on Excel, but I think it starts at 1. So we can rule that one out. And then I thought I'll check over the other numbers. And you can see this is our synthesized data. So if I go down to row number 14, which is told me, it said, pleased with the efforts, nothing about repairs. And then it also said, I think 23, did it say? It said disappointed with the lack of diversity. I also noticed that's not 3,000 rows, I think. So I asked for it to do it again, and it did the same numbers, 0 again, which I find crazy. It hasn't done that before, so that's why I'm enjoying it. And then I asked it again because I thought that's still not 3,000 rows, and it did the same thing again. So that's as far as I got. It was frustrating me. I had to leave it. So then I went onto a nice little Power BI, which is a bit more comfortable to watch. And I went onto repairs. Obviously, repairs is quite general. So I started general, and you could see I just went on general repairs, which is what we've got. And then you can see down here on the right is where our crossover themes are. So these are the main themes that come up when people talk about repairs, which is contractor behavior, quality of repair, handled in a reasonable time. So that's useful just to get a number on those kind of crossover themes. And what I'm also able to do is then I can look at the cross table, which is where I've got repairs on the column, and I put just the whole category of maintenance and repairs. And then you can see what proportion of comments about repairs are talking about, say, contractor behavior, 41%, quality of repair, 40%, only temporary, not much. So things like that I'm able to look at. Also, I'm able to go into home fixtures and fittings, and we're able to see what people are talking about when they talk about repairs, but like, is it doors? Is it things like that? So we can see 15% of mentions of repairs talk about doors, kitchens, 12.5%, windows, 5.4%. I think that's quite useful just to see where people are talking about the repairs. I then am able to look at it over time, which is on rises and fallers, and this just tracks month to month the mentions of specific themes. So I thought we could go on repairs, but it's quite general. So I thought from here, I'll go long time to repair, just to get a bit more specific with the numbers. So we can see month to month, how does that look? And you can see over time, obviously it's a synthesized data set, so it won't show much. But if it was a real data set, often you'd see like if a spike in a month, say for damp and mold, if like seasonal, you can see the spikes if it happens in wetter months, things like that. And then finally, I went back to the platform just to see our verbatim, which is where you can see the numbers. So you saw it goes down into repairs. I then went into long time to repair. And on the left-hand side, this is themes that cross over, which is where you see like doors, like I mentioned, and topics that unsupervised learning, what the computer did. And then on this right-hand side is where we get the verbatim. So I clicked long time to repair, and these are 843 comments that talk about specifically long time to repair. For example, home countries repairs still unresolved, 2 visits so far, but issues persist. So you're able to really drill down into your data and see the verbatim that Copilot unfortunately couldn't do. So that's me out. Stop sharing.
I don't know how you said amazing, Stella. I think that was brilliant. Thank you. I know when I was 22 hours traveling around Asia, not manipulating Power BI dashboards. So
I mean, that sounds pretty good.
I'm giving you a little clap. That was brilliant. So yeah, there's some really good chat in the comments as well. So thanks for that, Chris, around your zero. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. Let me reshare and we can continue on. We're going to jump into a Q&A. So this is the time that you put questions in the chat. Like I say, ideally make some difficult questions for Pete. That's my favorite kind of Q&A. So yeah, any questions about AI, how the Wordnerds solution kind of copes with TSM data, any more general questions, yeah, go for it. Be as wide and variety as you like. And we're also going to pop up a second poll. So I was just having a look at the poll answers actually, and I think it's really interesting because a lot of people have tried AI. And I think the majority of people thought it was great. So I'm super interested to see how this pans out into the second poll. Let me know if, you know, by seeing the kind of breakdown there, if you feel a little bit more concerned about some of the results that you're getting. I think one of the key things I'm always told from housing associations in particular is I don't feel confident in the data. So I don't feel confident in my analysis, whether that's manual, using AI. I think when you're saying to the board, you know, we want to make this change, you've really got to be certain of the data. And I think that's a big kind of worry, I think. So let me know how you feel about that in the comments, and we'll answer those in a sec. If you have looked at this and think, you know, we would like to do something a bit more granular, to be a bit more confident, then we definitely can help. So I'll just give you a quick breakdown of how that looks, what that looks like. We start with a chat with me. You know, I'm a very friendly person, I like to think, so not too salesy, probably could be doing with being a bit more salesy. So we'll probably spend 20 minutes chatting about personal things, 10 minutes chatting about, you know, your fit, your what your kind of individual situation is, what your role's like, any challenges you've got, and making it a bit more of a personalised sort of consultation. And then we can jump straight into the platform. So the next step is, you know, about 45 minutes. You've spent like less than a couple of hours at this point. You can see the solution. You can, you know, we can do this kind of stuff live for you. We can see the Power BI dashboards. Again, completely free and no obligation, as are all these steps. And then if you think, you know, I'd like to see a bit more, we've got a really nice route into giving it a try. So a proof of concept costs £5,575. And for that, we analyse typically a couple of years of historical data. It takes 4 weeks to get the report back. And we are looking at slots now from April. We've had a very nice run recently of a few people signing up, which is great news for me and Pete. Not so good news for Stella, but that is the next step. And we can also show you a kind of example of that and what that looks like, so you can see exactly what you'd be getting. And then longer term, so our kind of clients that have been with us for a bit longer are on a subscription, generally starts from around 21k for the year. And that's a combination of either just a SaaS solution where you do all the work yourself in the platform, or a managed service where you also get reports. And that's fully supported with a customer success team. who are absolutely brilliant. I know one of them's on the call, so yeah, I obviously had to say that. But yeah, have we got some questions in the chat, Vic? How's it looking? Let me have a look. I'm going to jump in now. Oh, we've got loads of questions. I'm so excited. I wonder how much time we've got. We've got 15 minutes left, so hopefully we can get through a few of these. But let me pop up a few. So I'm going to hand this one. I'm going to put this one up. Pete, do you want to take this, or I can?
Whatever you want. You take it. I'll do. There's a great one from Chris, and I'm really interested in the chat about Python and stuff like that. So you do this one. I'll do the next one.
Yeah, we'll save Pete for the more technical questions. Thanks, Joe. Super good question. So in the framework, can you analyze and compare data from multiple sources at the same time? So how can you compare the different parts of the surveys? We absolutely can do this. So most clients tend to have a holistic view where they can see all the different sources, but also broken down by projects, so broken down by survey type. And then within that, if you're tracking, so you've got a tenant ID, for example, that's associated with the different people, we then track that across the different surveys. So you can see the surveys all broken down by individual kind of parts. You can see, like Joe said, you can see building safety in one survey. You can also see that across the other survey, see how the sentiment changes. And then you can also see a holistic view across all of your surveys of overall sentiment. So the answer is yes. Right, we'll pop to Chris's.
Yeah. So firstly, hi Chris. Great result for Palace the other night. I was thinking about you. If you change your prompt to specify that you're writing a PhD, that no hypotheses would be unsupported by references, and it was not bluff in any way, would it have given you better if limited answers? So yes, there's some chat earlier on about whether or not row 0 is because it was doing it in Python. I don't know the answer to that. We'll definitely check. I am not a data scientist. Chris very much is. Of course, he knows that that could be an answer. We'll have a look at that. I think clearly, for the purposes of this, we've done the kind of prompting that most people would do. There's a lot of talk at the minute about things like agentic AI, and there's new sort of models all the time, research models that are coming out. There's reasoning models. We're finding that some of the submodels are doing better jobs of this. And there is no doubt, by the way, that in a certain amount of time, Gen AI will be much better at being able to do this. And a lot of the stuff that we do about classification, it will eventually be able to do. I'm going to say eventually, that's probably relatively soon. That could probably be quite reliable in 12, 18 months, 2 years, something like that. I think one of the issues, though, is the fact that it's not always right. You can tell it to be correct, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will be correct. They still have the disclaimer there saying it might be wrong. There's the issue about who decides what's in a data set. One of our customers we've mentioned is B&Q. We were trying to train some data to work out. They wanted to know about whether or not customers can find the toilet in their stores. That's a fairly easy question for most people, but specifically for them, it was complicated by the fact that they sell toilets. So often when we were finding people saying that they couldn't find the toilet, actually the difference between not being able to find the toilet and not being able to find the toilets is very, very subtle, but very, very important. And it means a completely different thing. And the advantage of having the control over deciding what is in the data set and what isn't is the difference between something making sense and not. And I think as we've sort of found, and Chris, as you've proved, just one part of this is the classification bit, just one part is the putting numbers on this. Actually, the really interesting stuff is how you present it, how people consume it, but also what you then do with it, all of the prioritization stuff, the kind of correlation analysis, the predictive stuff. There's so much more to it. So yes, it's getting better. You could prompt it better. You could find different ways of getting it to check each other and stuff like that. It still wouldn't be accurate. It would be much, much closer, but you wouldn't know when it wasn't. And I think that's part of the problem. If you go to the board or the senior leadership team and say, this is a really big problem that we need to solve, and then somebody checks the data and it's wrong, you look like the idiot. You've just spent 10 million quid sorting it out, and it's not based on good data.
Thanks, Pete. Really good answer. We've had some really good questions, so we're going to try and get through as many as we can, because I think some of these are really great ones. So Stephen asked, with the fact that Gen AI can give you rubbish that sounds good, how do other competitors in the industry who use this in their products consider this?
Don't know. I guess you'll have to ask them. I mean, I think honestly, we tend not to come up against other software providers that much when we're talking to people. Most of the time, the thing that we're replacing is manual coding or agencies, and often a lot of those agencies use manual coding. Manual coding is really interesting in that obviously it's a pain in the neck to do. It takes ages. It's very expensive. Also, it's not that good. It's very good at doing sort of top level stuff. But when you start breaking it down, trying to get humans to do 130 different kind of classification models or whatever and put sentiment on it and all that kind of thing, and then you come up with something new and you have to go back through and read all of your old data again, it's just not good. I'm guessing, I know that some of our competitors, do similar things to us. A lot of our competitors are doing what we're doing in the sense that they are creating that structured layer in between the Gen AI. I think what we do differently is we get the human to do that. We've got you graphic user interface that lets you train that stuff yourself. We also do a lot more with unsupervised learning that we haven't had time to go into today. So we pull out the natural topics in the language without you having to train anything. That's not something that Gen AI is, or AI generally is, very good at yet. It can do the top level stuff. My co-founder Steve is a recovering linguist. He deals with the structure of language, and we use a combination of AI and linguistics and some other stuff to do that a bit better. So, obviously there are other tools available. Please do speak to them. We love a fair fight. One of the reasons we do a proof of concept is that we like to basically say to people, if you want to try us out. We're arrogant enough to believe that we can go head to head with other solutions and come back with things that are different, better, and more useful. We might be wrong. You can decide. Are we faithful or traitor?
Right. Next question. So I'm interested in the learning and fine-tuning process in Wordnerds. How does this work in practice? I think this is a really good one, and also links to a question a little bit further down. If we've got an insights team that can build something similar using Power BI, then why would we need the help of Wordnerds? I think that ties in nicely to the human aspect of the AI. So yeah, Pete, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll do the insights team one first. Obviously, if you've got an insights team and there's tools available to you, you can totally build this yourself. Just like with something like WordPress, you don't need to use an agency to build you a website. Why do you use an agency to build your website? Because what takes you 3 months takes them 3 weeks, because they do this all the time. They'll do it better, deeper, quicker than you, because there are subtleties in this. The stuff that your insights team that can build on is stuff that's out of the box. When they get to things like sarcasm, or when they get to things like use of emojis, if the tools that they're using don't deal with that very well, it's very difficult for them to find workarounds. We've got teams of people that are on this 5 days a week. We've been working at this problem for 6 or 7 years now. And all of the problems that you're going to come up against when you do this yourself, we've already seen. I think the other thing that's kind of interesting is we're finding that particularly BI analysts they're the kind of the new bottleneck. A couple of years ago, web devs seemed to be the people that, you could never get any development done. Now it's, we want to build a dashboard. Some people are waiting sort of 3, 4, 5 months for their dashboard to be built, because everybody's moving everything into sort of BI or into their analyst team. So yeah, you can totally do this yourself. Have a go. And if you run into problems, feel free to come and speak to us. We're always happy to help. As Saz mentioned before, we do this as a self-serve thing, but we also do it as a managed service, and we can kind of flex in and out around people, so we can work with your insights team, helping them with stuff that they can't necessarily do. In terms of the fine-tuning process itself, how does it work in practice? The training into buckets, yeah, it is context dependent. So it's literally called context themes. So that idea that two people can say the same things, not use any of the same language, The sentence embedding is great at finding those things, and obviously once a human's gone through and trained that stuff and said, yeah, those two are the same, it will make that association and it will learn from that. There's also times when keyword is really useful, place names, for example, product names. So we give you the opportunity to do both. And does it learn from itself over time? It doesn't, because that would take out the human in the loop. What it does do, though, is we've got built-in accuracy checking. So we use something called F1 accuracy. There's two main ways we can be wrong. We can either miss something from the data set that should have been in it, or we misclassify something as being in the data set that shouldn't have been in it. And when you train a theme beyond a certain level, we've got stuff that will go through and it will come back and say, this is 89% accurate, this is 92% accurate. And you can then always know how accurate your theme is over time. Sometimes that changes a little bit because new data comes in and the language changes. Sometimes it stays the same, but it's a 10-15 minute job to retrain something to be more accurate if you want to check it. The sentiment stuff, again, you can say if we've got something wrong from a sentiment perspective, you can flag it. That doesn't retrain the rest of the set because that can confuse it. But what it does do is it goes straight to Hugh and Damani, our data scientists' desks, and they start looking into it. And we found all kinds of weird and wonderful reasons why we've misclassified sentiments that are sometimes hilarious. I hope that answers your question.
That was really good. Thanks, Pete. I think, Aldwin, where you made that spelling mistake of damp and mold, that's a good example of the way that it'll pick it up. It can pick up multiple different spellings of the same word, and people often do spell things wrong. So it's a good way of kind of bringing those together. So I think we've probably got time for one more question, and I really like this one. So is your use of software a way for companies to do with data analyst roles, or is it purely meant to work alongside and complement a specialist skill set?
I love this question. It's one we get asked all the time. The majority of people we work with use us because they want to spend less time going through the data manually and more time working on the solutions to these problems. Again, there's a bunch of things that we do with data science teams. So Chris at Guinness with his data science team, we're doing the classification piece. We're helping with the kind of pre-processing of the data. They're then taking all of this and doing sort of interesting stuff with it. Some of that is stuff that we can do on other people's behalf and stuff like that. With all of these things, we're not replacing anybody. There's going to be two types of company in the future: companies that embrace AI and companies that cease to exist. Everybody is going to be bringing AI into everything that they do eventually. Eventually, it's going to be second nature. And we're all going to have to do more with less. We're all going to be expected to get further with fewer people. We're all going to be expected to get deeper with less resource. And so what this does is it takes away a lot of the heavy lifting and lets the analysts, the insights teams do the higher value stuff and do the persuading, do the action planning, do the co-creating with your customers, and the monitoring over time. Have those things that you've put in, has that made a difference? Has it not? The stuff that's actually going to move the needle on making residents and customers' lives better.
Brilliant. Well, we're at time, guys. I really enjoyed that. So thank you so much for your attention, and the questions were great. So thank you so much for contributing in the chat. Yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. And like we said, if you want to have a chat with us, just click on the link or drop me an email. I'm just Sarah@wordnerds.ai, and we can continue the conversation. There was a couple of questions that we didn't get to, so I'll send you a little message with some answers. But yeah, thank you so much. You know where we are. We've got another one coming on another hot topic, so Power BI. So keep an eye out in your inbox for that invite. But thank you so much. Really enjoyed that, and I'd love your feedback if you've got any. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Stella. Thanks, Pete.